The weight of impossible choice. Cassidy Bennett stood in the hospital billing office, staring at the invoice that might as well have been written in her blood. $247,000. The numbers blurred as tears threatened to spill. Her father's stage 4 pancreatic cancer treatment was draining every cent she had, every favor she could call in. And it still wasn't enough. She folded the paper with trembling hands and walked through the sterile corridors of Metropolitan General, her sensible flats squeaking against the polished floors. As an elementary school teacher, her salary barely covered rent and groceries. The side jobs, the tutoring sessions, the weekend catering gigs, none of it made a dent in the mountain of medical debt crushing her family. An unexpected encounter. Hospital fundraiser wasn't somewhere Cassidy belonged. She was there serving appetizers, wearing a borrowed black dress and a forced smile. The ballroom glittered with wealth, from diamond necklaces to designer tuxedos. These people donated more in a single evening than she earned in a year. She balanced a tray of champagne flutes, weaving between clusters of donors, discussing vacation homes and yacht upgrades. Her mind was elsewhere, calculating whether she could pick up another tutoring student, when someone bumped into her from behind. The tray tilted, glass shattered, champagne splashed across expensive Italian leather shoes. Cassidy's heart stopped. She looked up into the face of the man she'd just drenched, ready to apologize profusely, ready to lose this desperately needed job. Dr. Adrian Thornwood stood before her, -1 feet of controlled composure in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and his green eyes held an intensity that made her breath catch. But he wasn't angry. He was studying her with curious interest. "I'm so sorry," Cassidy stammered, dropping to gather the broken glass. "Please, let me get something to clean this. Leave it." His voice was deep, commanding but not harsh. "Staff will handle it." "Are you hurt?" The question surprised her. Nobody at these events cared about the help. "No, I'm fine." "Your shoes, though, are replaceable." He extended a hand to help her up. "You're shaking." Cassidy realized he was right. Her hands trembled, not from the spill, but from everything. The exhaustion, the fear, the crushing weight of watching her father fade while she stood powerless. Something in his gaze told her he saw it all. The proposal that changed everything 2 hours later, as the fundraiser wound down. An event coordinator found Cassidy in the kitchen. "Dr. Thornwood wants to see you in the conference room." "Don't worry, you're not fired." The conference room overlooked the city, floor-to-ceiling windows framing a skyline of possibilities Cassidy had never dared dream of. Adrian stood with his back to her, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight with tension. "Miss Bennett," he began without turning, "I took the liberty of learning your name and your situation." Cold dread flooded her veins. "I don't understand." He turned, and she saw weariness beneath his polished exterior. "My mother is dying. Congestive heart failure. She has perhaps 6 months left, and her final wish is to see me married before she goes. I'm sorry for your loss, but I don't see what that has to do with me. I need a wife." The words hung in the air like a challenge. "Not a real marriage. A business arrangement. 1 year of your time in exchange for complete coverage of your father's medical expenses, plus compensation that will secure your financial future." Cassidy's legs went weak. She gripped the back of a chair. "You can't be serious." The contract and its conditions. Adrian opened a leather portfolio, revealing a thick document. "Perfectly serious. You would move into my home, attend family functions and medical events as my spouse, maintain the appearance of a loving marriage in public. In private, we maintain separate lives and separate spaces. Why me?" Her voice came out as a whisper. "Because you need this desperately enough to commit fully. Because you won't mistake this arrangement for something it isn't. And because when I looked at you tonight, I saw someone with integrity, someone who works 3 jobs to save her father instead of taking shortcuts." He paused. "Someone I can trust to honor an agreement." Cassidy moved to the window, her reflection ghostly against the city lights. A year of her life, a year of pretending, of living a lie. But her father would live. He would have access to the best oncologists, the most advanced treatments, A real fighting chance. There's one critical clause, Adrian continued. If either party develops genuine romantic feelings, the contract terminates immediately with no compensation. This arrangement functions precisely because emotions have no place in it. She turned to face him. You're asking me to sell a year of my life. I'm offering you the chance to save your father's life. The choice is yours, Miss Bennet. Cassidy thought of her father's smile, the way he'd sacrificed everything to raise her alone after her mother left. She thought of his weak voice asking her not to worry. Even as the cancer consumed him, she thought of the alternative, watching him die because she couldn't afford to save him. She crossed to the desk and picked up the expensive pen Adrian offered. Her hand steadied as she signed her name in flowing script. When do we start, Dr. Thornwood? Call me Adrian, and we start tonight. Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Thornwood. Entering a gilded Kajeli Thornwood penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor of the city's most exclusive residential tower. Cassidy stood in the marble foyer, her single suitcase looking pathetic beside the contemporary artwork and designer furniture. Everything gleamed with the kind of cleanliness that came from professional staff, not personal effort. Adrian gestured down a hallway lined with abstract paintings. Your suite is through here. I've arranged for a stylist to meet you tomorrow morning. Public appearances require a certain presentation. Cassidy bristled, but swallowed her pride. This was the agreement. And where is your room? Opposite wing. We'll maintain our privacy. He handed her a credit card. For anything you need. Clothing, personal items, whatever makes you comfortable here. I don't want your money beyond what we agreed. It's not generosity. It's necessity. My colleagues expect my wife to look the part. His tone was matter of fact, almost cold. We have our first event Friday evening, dinner with my mother and her physicians. Consider it a dress rehearsal. He left her standing there, and Cassidy explored her new temporary home. The suite was larger than her entire apartment, decorated in soft greys and whites, with a bedroom, sitting area, and bathroom that resembled a luxury spa. Through the windows, the city sprawled below like a kingdom she'd never belonged to. She sat on the edge of the impossibly soft bed and let herself cry. Not from sadness, but from the surreal weight of what she'd done. She'd sold herself into a beautiful prison, and there was no going back. Learning the steps of a practice dance the next 3 days were a crash course in becoming Mrs. Adrian Thornwood. The stylist, a sharp-eyed woman named Francesca, transformed Cassidy's wardrobe into something unrecognizable. Gone were her Target dresses and comfortable cardigans, replaced by elegant pieces from designers she'd only seen in magazines. You have good bone structure, Francesca said, circling her like a sculptor examining marble. We just need to enhance what's already there. Adrian conducted briefing sessions each evening, drilling her on his family history, his professional background, how they supposedly met. We'll say we encountered each other at a medical charity event 6 months ago. You were volunteering. We connected over our shared commitment to education and healthcare. That's almost true, Cassidy noted, a hint of irony in her voice. The best lies are wrapped in truth. He handed her a folder. Study these. My mother will ask questions. She's brilliant, even while dying. Cassidy read late into the night, memorizing names and faces, medical achievements and family scandals. The Thornwood legacy was impressive and intimidating. Adrian had graduated top of his class from Johns Hopkins, completed his residency at Massachusetts General, published groundbreaking research on cardiac regeneration. He was 36 years old and already a legend in cardiovascular surgery. No wonder he had no time for real relationships. His entire life was dedicated to saving hearts, leaving none available for his own. The first performance Ephraim arrived with crisp autumn weather and Cassidy's mounting anxiety. She stood before the mirror in a navy dress that hugged her curves perfectly, her hair styled in soft waves, makeup subtle but polished. She looked like someone else, someone who belonged in Adrian's world. He appeared in her doorway, wearing a dark suit that emphasized his athletic build. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes as he looked at her. Surprise, perhaps, or approval. "You look appropriate," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Thank you, I think." In the car, Adrian reviewed final details. "My mother, Victoria, is perceptive. Don't try to oversell our relationship. Simple affection, comfortable silence, the ease of two people who know each other well. How am I supposed to fake ease when I'm terrified?" He glanced at her, and his expression softened slightly. "Remember why you're doing this? Your father started his new treatment protocol yesterday, correct?" Cassidy nodded, emotion tightening her throat. The doctors had been optimistic, talking about targeted therapy and positive indicators. Hope, after months of despair. Then focus on that. Everything else is just performance. Meeting Victoria Thornwood received them in a private dining room, the hospital's executive wing. Despite her illness, she radiated elegance, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her eyes the same penetrating green as her son's. Medical equipment hummed quietly in the background, but she ignored it with practiced grace. "So you're the woman who captured my son's heart." Victoria's voice was warm, but assessing. "Come closer, dear. Let me see you properly." Cassidy approached, feeling like a specimen under a microscope. Adrian's hand found the small of her back, a gesture of support that felt surprisingly genuine. "Mother, this is Cassidy." "Cassidy, my mother, Victoria. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Thornwood. Adrian speaks of you constantly, does he?" Victoria smiled. "He's always been private about his personal life. Tell me, how did you two really meet?" They recited their rehearsed story, with Cassidy adding small details about volunteering at the children's literacy program the hospital sponsored. Adrian interjected occasionally, his hand never leaving her back, creating the illusion of unconscious intimacy. Victoria listened, nodding, her sharp mind clearly analyzing every word. "And your family, Cassidy? Adrian mentioned your father is receiving treatment here." "Yes, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors have been wonderful." Cassidy's voice caught. "Your son has been incredibly supportive." "That's my Adrian. Always saving people." Victoria reached out and took Cassidy's hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "But who saves the saviors, I wonder?" The question hung in the air, loaded with meaning Cassidy didn't fully understand. Cracks in the facade dinner progressed through multiple courses, with Victoria asking pointed questions about their relationship, their future plans, their feelings for each other. Cassidy felt herself relaxing slightly, finding genuine things to say about Adrian, his dedication to his patients, his quiet intelligence, the way he listened completely when someone spoke. She wasn't lying about those things. They were true, observed during their brief coexistence. Adrian, for his part, described Cassidy with unexpected warmth. Her passion for teaching, her creativity, her strength in facing adversity. When he looked at her while speaking, something in his gaze made her pulse quicken. "You balance him," Victoria said softly. "Adrian has always been too serious, too focused on work. But I see lightness in his eyes when he looks at you, Mother," Adrian said, a warning in his tone. "I'm dying, darling. I'm allowed to be sentimental." Victoria smiled. "Cassidy, would you mind giving us a moment? I need to discuss some medical matters with my son." Cassidy excused herself, stepping into the hallway. Through the partially open door, she heard Victoria's voice, lower now but still clear. "She's lovely. Adrian, genuine. Don't let this one slip away like the others. It's complicated. Love always is. But I see how you look at her. That's not complicated. That's simple and terrifying and wonderful." Cassidy's heart hammered. She shouldn't be listening, but she couldn't make herself walk away. "We have an understanding," Adrian said carefully. "Understandings can change. Hearts can surprise us." A pause. "I'm glad I got to meet her, son, even if I don't have much time left to know her." Cassidy pressed her hand to her mouth, fighting tears. For Victoria's impending loss, for Adrian's quiet pain, for the complexity of the web they'd woven. The ride home in the car, silence stretched between them. Finally, Adrian spoke. "You did well tonight, My mother likes you. She's remarkable. I'm sorry she's going through this. She's stronger than the cancer. Always has been. His jaw tightened. She fight until the end. Cassidy turned to study his profile in the passing streetlights. This must be incredibly difficult for you. I'm a doctor. I understand terminal prognosis. You're also her son. He didn't respond, but his hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. Cassidy reached out instinctively, placing her hand over his. He flinched at the contact, then relaxed slightly. Thank you, he said quietly. For tonight. For being kind to her. I didn't have to pretend about that part. She's easy to care about. They drove the rest of the way in silence, but Adrian didn't remove his hand from under hers. When they reached the penthouse, he walked her to her suite door, an oddly chivalrous gesture. Cassidy, he said, his voice rough. About what my mother said. About how I look at you, her breath caught. Adrian, we don't have to discuss this. Good. Because I don't know what to say. He stepped back. Good night. She watched him walk away, her hand tingling where it had touched his, her heart doing dangerous things in her chest. The contract explicitly forbade this. The growing warmth between them, the moments of genuine connection, the way her stomach flipped when he was near. This was supposed to be simple. A business arrangement, but nothing about Adrian Thornwood was simple, and Cassidy was beginning to realize that some contracts were impossible to honor when the heart had its own agenda. The unraveling 3 weeks into their arrangement, Cassidy stood in Adrian's study doorway, watching him work through patient files at 2 a.m. He'd removed his tie, rolled up his sleeves, and his dark hair was disheveled from running his hands through it. He looked exhausted and human, and nothing like the controlled surgeon who'd offered her a contract. You should sleep, she said softly. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. I could say the same to you. Couldn't sleep. I heard you moving around. She entered the study, drawn by something she couldn't name. Rough case, teenager, congenital heart defect, surgery scheduled for Monday. But the odds aren't good. He leaned back in his chair. Her parents look at me like I'm God. Like I can perform miracles. Can't you? I've read your research. You've saved hundreds of patients and lost dozens. Those are the ones that haunt you at night. He met her gaze. Do you know what it's like to hold someone's heart in your hands, literally, and know that one mistake means they'll never see their family again? Cassidy crossed to him, drawn by the vulnerability in his voice. No, but I know what it's like to watch someone you love suffer and feel powerless to help them. Understanding passed between them. To people carrying impossible weights, finding unexpected common ground. Your father's latest scans were encouraging, Adrian said. Dr. Peterson showed them to me. The tumors are shrinking. Tears sprang to Cassidy's eyes. You've been checking on him. Of course. That's part of our agreement. Is it? She stepped closer. Because it feels like more than that. Like you actually care. Adrian stood abruptly, putting distance between them. Don't confuse professional thoroughness with personal investment. Why not? I'm confused about everything else. The words escaped before she could stop them. I'm confused about why you wait up when I come home late from tutoring. Why you remember how I take my coffee. Why you look at me sometimes like I'm not just a contractual obligation. Cassidy. Her name was a warning. I know what the contract says. Adrian. I know what happens if we cross that line. She wrapped her arms around herself. But I'm struggling here, because somewhere between the rehearsed stories and the public appearances, this started feeling real to me. The confession hung between them, dangerous and honest. Adrian's jaw tightened, his hands clenching at his sides as he fought some internal battle. It can't be real, he said finally. I built that clause into the contract for a reason. I don't do relationships. I don't have time, energy, or emotional capacity for the complications of actual feelings. Then why does it look like you're fighting the same battle I am? He moved toward her, his eyes blazing with something raw and unguarded. Because you're right. Because every rule I made is becoming impossible to follow. Because when I come home, I look for you first. Because your smile has become the best part of my day. Cassidy's heart hammered against her ribs. Adrian ... double quotes. But that doesn't change reality. In 9 months, this arrangement ends. You return to your life. I return to mine. Getting attached only makes that harder. What if I don't want it to end? The question shattered something in his carefully constructed walls. He closed the distance between them, his hand coming up to cup her face with surprising gentleness. Don't say things like that. Don't make me hope for things I have no right to want. Why not? We're both adults. We both feel this. Why does that have to be wrong? For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, his gaze dropping to her lips. Then he stepped back, his expression closing. Because hope is dangerous. Because I've been down this road before, and it ended with betrayal and heartbreak. Because protecting both of us means maintaining boundaries. His voice turned cold. This conversation is over. Good night, Cassidy. He left her standing in his study, her heart breaking for both of them. Victoria's final gift. Days later, Victoria Thornwood requested Cassidy visit her alone. Cassidy found her in the hospital's rooftop garden, wrapped in blankets despite the mild weather, her body frail but her mind sharp as ever. Sit with me, dear. We need to talk. Cassidy settled onto the bench beside her, worrying knotting her stomach. Is everything all right? I'm dying. Nothing is all right. Victoria smiled wryly. But that gives me the freedom to speak truth. I know about the contract, Cassidy. Blood drained from Cassidy's face. What? I've known from the beginning. Did you think I built a medical empire alongside my late husband by being naive? Victoria patted her hand. Adrian forgets. I still have access to his legal files. I saw the arrangement. Then why did you let us continue the charade? Because it wasn't a charade. Not really. Victoria's eyes twinkled. I saw how my son looked at you that first night at the fundraiser. Before he even spoke to you, I saw the first spark of genuine interest in his eyes in 5 years. Since his divorce, Cassidy's mind reeled. He was married before, briefly, to a woman who wanted his money and status, not his heart. It destroyed something in him, made him believe love was a transaction. Victoria squeezed her hand. Then you appeared, someone with your own reasons to keep emotional distance, someone he felt safe with. Do you know what I did? What? I encouraged him, not directly, but I planted seeds, mentioned how lonely he seemed, wondered aloud what kind of woman could reach past his walls. Victoria's smile turned mischievous. I may have even suggested he needed someone genuine, someone who understood struggle. You manipulated us. I gave you an opportunity. What you did with it was your choice. Victoria's expression grew serious. Cassidy, I'm telling you this because I'm running out of time, and my son is running out of chances at happiness. That contract, with its ridiculous emotional clause, is his fear talking, his way of protecting himself from being hurt again. He made the rules clear. If either of us develops feelings, everything ends. Then break the rules. Fight for him. Because I see in your eyes what I saw in his. You've already fallen in love with my impossible, brilliant, terrified son. Tears streamed down Cassidy's face. He doesn't want this. He said so. He's lying. To you and to himself. Victoria's breathing labored. Promise me something. When I'm gone, when he tries to retreat completely into his work, don't let him. Don't let him use that contract as an excuse to push away the best thing that's happened to him. I don't know if I can. You're stronger than you know. You survived watching your father face death. You made impossible choices to save him. You can survive loving my son. Victoria's grip tightened. Promise me. I promise. The crisis that changed everything. Victoria Thornwood passed away peacefully 3 weeks later, with Adrian holding one hand and Cassidy holding the other. The funeral was attended by hundreds of medical professionals, grateful patients, and community leaders. Adrian delivered the eulogy with perfect composure, his voice never wavering, his expression controlled. Only Cassidy saw how his hands shook afterward, how he stood alone at the reception, unreachable behind walls of grief. She found him that night on the penthouse terrace, staring at the city lights with empty eyes. Without a word, she wrapped a blanket around his shoulders and sat beside him in silence. I knew it was coming, he said finally. I'm a doctor. I understood the prognosis. But knowing and experiencing are different things. You don't have to be strong right now. Not with me. He turned to her, and the composure shattered. She was the only person who truly knew me, who understood why I became a surgeon, why I pushed so hard. She believed I could save everyone, even when I knew better. She was remarkable, and she loved you fiercely. At the end, she kept talking about you, about us. His voice roughened. She told me not to be a fool, not to let you go when the contract ends. Cassidy's heart stopped. What did you say? I told her it was complicated. She laughed and said love always is. He faced her fully. She also told me she knew about our arrangement from the beginning, that she'd been matchmaking from the shadows. She told me the same thing. Did she? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Clever woman. Even while dying, they sat in silence, the weight of Victoria's absence pressing down on them. Finally, Adrian spoke again. The contract ends in 6 months. We could terminate it early if you want. You've fulfilled your obligation. Your father's treatment is secure regardless of what happens between us. Is that what you want? From me to leave? I don't know what I want anymore. He looked at her, his eyes filled with confusion and longing and fear. I know what I should want. I know what makes sense, what keeps us both safe. But then I look at you, and all that logic disappears. Cassidy's breath caught. Adrian ... I'm in love with you. The words tumbled out, raw and honest. I'd been fighting it since the moment you put your hand over mine in the car after meeting my mother. Maybe before that. And I don't know what to do about it, because falling in love violates everything we agreed to. According to the contract, admitting that means we terminate the arrangement immediately. I know. No compensation. No continued coverage. Your father's care is secure. I made calls this week. Set up a permanent fund through the hospital foundation. That was never truly conditional, no matter what the contract said. He turned to face her fully. So I'm asking you, not as your contracted husband, but as a man who's terrified and flawed and completely in love with you. Do you feel anything real for me? Or have I misread everything? Cassidy stood, her heart racing. She moved to stand directly in front of him, close enough to see gold flecks in his green eyes. You haven't misread anything. I love you, Adrian Thornwood. I've been falling for you through every conversation, every shared moment, every time you've shown me the real person beneath the surgeon's mask. She took his hands in hers. I know this breaks our agreement. I know it complicates everything, but I can't pretend anymore. I don't want to. What are we going to do? We're going to tear up that ridiculous contract, and then we're going to figure this out together, like real people in a real relationship. No rules except the ones we make as we go. I'm not good at relationships. My track record is terrible. Then we'll learn together. We'll make mistakes and fight and figure out how to balance your impossible schedule with my need for more than surface conversation. She smiled through tears. And we'll do it without a contract dictating our emotions. Adrian pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her with an urgency that spoke of fear and hope tangled together. I'm terrified of this. Me too. But I'm more terrified of walking away and spending my life wondering what we could have been. He pulled back just enough to cup her face in his hands, his thumb brushing away her tears. My mother would be insufferably pleased with herself right now. She'd be proud of you for being brave enough to risk your heart. Then I suppose I should honor her memory by doing exactly that. He smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. I love you, Cassidy Bennett. No contract, no conditions, no escape clauses, just this terrifying, wonderful truth. I love you too. When he finally kissed her, it was nothing like she'd imagined. It was better, tender and fierce, hesitant and certain. The kiss of two people who'd fought against their feelings and finally surrendered to something stronger than fear. The city lights sparkled below them, and somewhere in the universe, Victoria Thornwood smiled, knowing her final matchmaking scheme had succeeded brilliantly. 6 months later, Cassidy stood in the newly opened Bennett Thornwood Community Learning Center, watching children from underserved neighborhoods participate in art classes, tutoring sessions, and literacy programs. The center, funded by the Thornwood Foundation and designed by Cassidy, represented everything she dreamed of creating. Adrian found her in the main gallery, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Happy, incredibly, she leaned into him. "Your mother would have loved this. She would have been here every day, probably reorganizing everything." He kissed her temple. "She'd also be asking when we're making the arrangement permanent." Cassidy turned in his arms. "What arrangement?" He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, dropping to one knee right there in the gallery surrounded by children's artwork. "Cassidy Bennett, I'm asking you to marry me, not because of a contract or an obligation, but because you've become my best friend, my partner, and the person I want beside me for every moment I have left in this life." "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard," she said, laughing through tears. "Where's the poetry, the romance? I'm a surgeon, not a poet. But I love you more than I thought it possible to love anyone. Will you marry me for real this time?" "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and the children in the nearby classroom erupted in applause, having been shamelessly eavesdropping. Adrian laughed, a sound of pure joy that Cassidy had worked months to coax from him. "So much for privacy," he murmured. "We'll never have privacy. We work with children and run a community center." She kissed him softly. "But we'll have each other, and that's more than enough." As they stood together in the center they'd built, surrounded by the community they served, Cassidy thought about impossible contracts and the unexpected ways love finds us. Sometimes the best agreements are the ones we break. Sometimes the rules that save us are the ones we abandon. And sometimes a fake marriage becomes the most real thing in your life. Their story had begun with a desperate proposal in a hospital conference room. It had become something neither could have predicted, a partnership built on trust, a friendship forged in vulnerability, and a love that rewrote all their carefully constructed plans. And that, Cassidy thought as Adrian took her hand and led her to meet the children eager to congratulate them, was the best contract violation either of them had ever committed.